Let's see, time now is 8:38. From the hapless market trader Del Boy to long-suffering Granville in open all hours, the actor Sir David Jason has brought us some of the best-loved characters in British television.
In his new book, Sir David reflects on life at 80 and offers some wisdom in difficult times.
We can speak to Sir David now. Very good morning to you. Lovely to see you this morning. And we were just, everyone, enjoying that moment from Only Fools and Horses. Do you know what? The number of times I've seen that, and the more I see it, the more I think, how is it that Trigger, and I'm sorry, I forget the actor's name, how is it he managed to keep a straight face? Every time I see it now, I think, how did that happen?
Yeah, well, good morning, Charlie. Good morning, Naga. Nice to be able to talk to you this morning.
Morning.
Roger Lloyd Pack was the actor.
Of course.
And that's one of the great things about, good actors, that he was able to control himself. And that was his skill. So he needed to keep himself under control as the character, which he did brilliantly. And let me just say, that the clip that you showed was better than people normally show it, because you put in the beginning, which is important to the build-up of the payoff. If you just do the bit about he falls through the hatch, well, yeah, okay, it works. But what's interesting and nice is the build-up, the character being a bit, in control and, and all, it knows what he's doing and all of that. And so that build-up makes the payoff funnier. So it was nice.
Oh, I'm glad you appreciated it, because I do wonder, it's almost like a calling card, isn't it? That sometimes I wonder, you've done so many things and have been in so many brilliant programmes, I wonder if sometimes you can just feel, I'm not this again.
Yes. Well, there's two things about it. It's sort of got a kick in the back, as it were, because there's two ways to look at it. I'm very pleased to be able to say that when I have to look at the work that I do, like in editing and things, I've always divorced myself, and I always look at that is the character. Now, does the character work? Is he making me laugh? Is it funny? All of that, it's not me. So when I watch that clip, which I've seen loads and loads of times, I do the same as everybody else. I'm looking at it and saying, what's he going to do? Is he, yes, he's funny, silly devil. What? And so I put all those bits together. It's him and not me. So I'm very fortunate in that way that I can, and when it's good, you can look at it a number of times. You can always, like watching Laurel and Hardy or Buster Keaton or anybody, when you see a really good joke done really well, it brings a smile to your face.
David, I will say that your book is an absolute delight. And one of the reasons is because you reflect a little bit on things, on your own life and sort of where you came from and where you got to. And there's a wonderful moment that I've never heard you talk about before. So you're a trainee electrician. You're like 20 years old. And there's a moment in the book where you describe driving around with your mate on the back of a job, and you go, I think you're driving past Buckingham Palace. And
yes.
There's a little moment in time, and so weird that we now know you as Sir. But just tell us, there was a little conversation that took place. There you are in the van. What happens?
Yes, I trust you to find something like that from the book. Yes, one of those little tiny moments that nobody really knows about. And what happened was, I think it's one of those things that happened to everybody, but people would drive past and go, one day that's me, I'll be in there and the Queen will knight me and I shall be Sir David, and all of that goes on. And that's what we were doing. We were just driving past and we were sort of living in a world of make-believe. There's the palace with the Queen and all the royal family, and we were a little humble electricians driving past in our minivan, and it was just something to say and amused us. And lo and behold, who knew? How did we possibly know that actually came to pass? So, yeah, it wasn't fortuitous. It wasn't like it was just a silly daydream, which all of us have. It's about, I always used to say, one day I'm going to have a Rolls Royce and I'll drive around in a Rolls Royce. Or I remember when my first girlfriend, and I was only at school, And I said to her, and she said, what do you want? You know, what do you hope is going to happen? I said, I'm going to get a blood red E-type Jaguar with white upholstery. And then I know I've arrived, you know.
And did you?
So that was, no, I never did. Far beyond my capabilities, I'm afraid. But it was a dream.
Oh, well, I mean, you've got to have them. And I think, you work hard enough. I think that's one of the things that runs through the book is hard work. And it doesn't always come, the things you want don't always come quickly. And I was really fascinated with, just with Only Fools and Horses, when John Sullivan, and this is the way things work, isn't it, in TV, or used to at least, handed you the script in the lift at the BBC in the days where you used to kind of just meet people around, and there were two things that happened with Only Fools and Horses that I think that was really interesting. One, you weren't necessarily in mind to play Del Boy. And two, the success of it, even though now we're so familiar with all of it, the success of it came from repeats.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because one of the main factors, I think, where we're losing out today is the ability to give say, situation comedy, which obviously Fools and Horses comes into that bracket, is to give it a chance. And we're so busy wanting instant fame, I'm not talking about the ads, but instant success, which is television companies, right? They don't let it breathe. And what happened with Fools and Horses, the first series went out and everybody went, well, I have no idea what that's all about. Switch it on to something else. And we got about 3 viewers, and 2 of those were my family. But when it got its repeat, then people said, did you see that show? It'd been on before. I gave it, yeah, it was pretty good. And it was the repeat that gave it that impetus for people to go, I recognise those. Oh, it gave the audience a chance to associate with the characters. And that's the reason, one of the reasons it took off. And the other thing, of course, it was written brilliantly by a man who actually lived there, and all of those characters on Fools and Horses were people that he knew, bless him.
And the other thing that Naga was referring to there was that you were possibly going to play Grandad. Is that right?
Well, yes, because that when I went into the interview with the director and John Sullivan, because I'd played so many silly old fart parts, like Blanco in Porridge and, Dithers, the 100-year-old gardener in Harker Barker, they thought that I'd come up for the Grandad part. And when I said, no, I wanted to read Del Boy, I want, that's the part. That is the part that I want. And so they said, all right, well, go on then, see if you can read that. And the rest, I suppose, is history.
Now, I noticed that you make reference, you were talking a little earlier about, working hard, and you have worked very hard all your life, prolific. And I think at one point you say you're the 4th hardest working actor in Britain. Is that the 4th? Who are the ones who are ahead of you in the list?
Oh, that's a very good question, because this was only presented to me just the other day. So all I know is that one of them is David Tennant.
He's everywhere, isn't he? He's everywhere.
He's a very good actor, yes. So I hope I'm going to beat him, but I let him have his chance for a moment, and then I'm going to knock him off that perch very soon. Him and Helen Mirren, yes. Yeah, she's another one. It's got to be knocked off their perch.
There were 3 ahead of you. There were 3 ahead of you. You've named 2, and I think you know all 3.
They're on the list.
I don't.
They're on the list.
Yes, they're on the list.
They're on the list.
Naga, you may look them up and correct me where I'm wrong.
I will. But I'll tell you what about the contrast then of being the 4th hardest working actor in the UK pre-lockdown to then lockdown, and you coming up with ideas using Trigger's broom for social distancing, trying to think of something creative to do with yourself?
Yes. Well, I thought that, well, you're quite right. It affected all of us. And all of us in show business, we've all lost jobs and not been able to do what we love doing the most. And what happened was that, just to answer quickly that question, that I thought to myself, how am I going to, it was my wife, I think, who said, what is 6 foot? What is 2 meters? I can't imagine 2 meters. And then I just thought, well, Trigger's broom, because Trigger's broom was getting more famous because of his association with how he talked about it. So it came up to me. I said, well, why don't we just say this to everybody and give them something to imagine, something silly, something funny that might bring a smile to them. And so they could refer to it. It might, you never know, might make you a new friend. So that was the motivation, to try and help us all in these very, very silly times, difficult times, to try and bring a little smile to people's faces. And that was the reason I did it.
Right at the beginning of the book, you do that thing. I don't know if many people do it these days. You say, when I look in the mirror, what do I see? And what is it that you see, David, when you look in the mirror these days?
I don't know, some old fart, really, I suppose. That it always reminds me of Thora Hird, of what she said. And this is true. She said many years ago, she was being interviewed, and there's a similar sort of question. And she said, well, you know what? She said, what happened was, she said, I got up and went into the kitchen to make a cup of tea, and I was 35. She said, when I came out with the tea, I was 75. And she said, that's what it feels like. And so that's what it feels like to me. You know, 1 minute I'm up there at 35 doing the swinging and wheeling and dealing and doing Del Boy. And the next minute, you know, here I am sort of waiting for my next job.
Can I ask, David, just if we're talking about the progression of years and everything, one of the stories that really charmed me was your grapefruit plant, which went from a seed that nearly choked you. I think it was in the 70s, and you were in your flat, and you still have it. And we were going to try to get you to do this interview with your grapefruit plant, because I think it's a massive achievement. You still have it. What's this, 50 years on? Yeah.
Now, listen, I'm not sure that I should reveal that story, but you've already revealed it in a way. I can't tell you, I won't reveal the story because it's at the beginning of the book. But the true, or how it came about, I'm not going to tell you, but the story is true that I planted it, a pick, and that was, I don't know what it was, 60 years or 70 years ago, whatever it was. And I've still got it, I've cared for it, and it's now a tree that is nearly 6 foot tall and in a big pot. And I just have cared for it all my life, and it is grown with me as my career has grown. So I suppose me and the grapefruit tree identify each other.
I'd like to think that you talk to the tree. Do you talk to the tree?
Do you know, I have done on occasions, because what happened was that one year it produced 3 little tiny grapefruits. And I was so overwhelmed by this wonderful thing that it had done, that I started to say how wonderful you were. That is brilliant. Now you've got to I want to see the fruit. So here I am talking to this silly tree. And of course, as soon as I turned my back, they all fell off. But I have talked to it since, and it's refused to produce any fruit. So if anybody out there can know how to achieve more fruit, please let me know. Thank you.
Oh, can I tell you, we're now going to be inundated with viewers
Definitely.
who will have grapefruit plant. One of the other things I found really amusing was that, and don't take this the wrong way, but I wouldn't have thought of you as someone who is mega conscious about their waistline, simply because you don't have to be, obviously. But Darling Buds of May, one of the things that I took away from your experience in Darling Buds of May was all the food and learning about continuity as well and how it's filmed.
Yeah, well, that's just one of the things. I did put on a lot of weight, by the way, on Darling Buds, and I think that's revealed in the book. Couldn't help, because I love my food, and we really went over the top, because that was the character. And if the character that you're asked to play eats like a piece of fish. I remember we had a piece of fish that was so big it fell off each end of the plate, and I consumed it during the course of the operation. But as you probably know, continuity means you've got to do it once in the wide shot, then in close up, then in the two shot, and then in the singles, and you have to eat it the same way that you ate in the wide shot. So you eat and consume about 3 or 4 of those huge fishes. So that's how I managed to put on weight. But whatever the character is asked to do, in a way, you try to invest in it, and it's take yourself away. It's not me. That is what Pa Larkin would do, and he would really enjoy his food. And it's one of those things that makes acting a pleasure sometimes.
Now, can I just ask you, David, you're a qualified helicopter pilot, is that right?
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, and I'm just curious. You know the thing of getting recognised. I mean, I'm sure it must happen still a lot. The Del Boy thing. Have there been occasions when you've been helicoptering? You've been piloting a helicopter and someone's gone, "Isn't that Del Boy at the controls?"
Well, it's very difficult to do that when you're 1,000 feet in the air.
Okay, it's a good point. You make a very good point.
Yes.
But I was thinking maybe as you stepped out of the helicopter.
Well, that's a very good thank you. It's difficult to recognise anybody who 1,000 feet, but there, yes, is the two. I flew into the Royal Air Tattoo, the Royal Air Show, many times. I'm an honorary member of that, and so I do fly in there, and when I get out and go and. I do that as a walkabout and meet people, and so they do know that I've come out of that helicopter because they make an announcement. Now, coming in now along the airfield is David Jason in his helicopter. He'll be coming, and there's like 10 million people all going, "Oh look, that's him there! Look, here he comes! I recognise him at 1,000 feet."
You see, it can be done, David. It can be done. Do you ever, because you're 80 now, which you make very clear in the book, and this you've had a very subdued birthday, and I won't ask you where you went because you refused to say where you went for your birthday with your wife and daughter because you don't want to reveal the restaurant because you're being selfish about it, basically. But when you have your test for the helicopter licence, I know, the record is held by an 87-year-old at the moment?
Yes.
So do you get that nervous feeling? You know, like sometimes if you walk through airport security and you know you've got nothing wrong, but you still worry that someone's going to kind of pull you up.
Nothing on? How many fields have you been through with nothing on?
Nothing. Well, you know what I mean. Actually, many. That's how I travel, David. Free and easy.
Blimey. I'm going to be in the airport next time you travel.
But
no, you'll be up in the air. You'll be 1,000 feet up in the air.
Exactly. You wouldn't recognise me. Do you ever get that feeling? You know, when you're having that test, because you obviously want to keep flying. Do you ever get that nervous feeling?
Well, yes, of course. You're absolutely right. The test, the medical test, you have to do 2 or 3 things, which is obviously you have to have a qualified helicopter pilot to test you to make sure that you can fly properly. So they put you through a load of tests, but also they're very, very tough on medical. So you have to go through a very tough medical. And so that bit is one that's a bit nerve-wracking because it is quite strenuous physically, and so and they make sure that you can pass all of that, otherwise they wouldn't let you up in the air. So yeah, I do get a bit nervous about meeting the medical people, yeah. And then basically getting on a treadmill, you have to get on a treadmill and do a lot of running, which I'm pretty good at, I'm pretty fit, you know. Yeah, for dancing, yeah.
Well, with that little pose there, it's a perfect time for us to end. David, it's been a delight talking to you this morning. Really lovely. Thank you so much. And the book is an absolute romp, and it's just so much detail in it. It's great. Lovely to see you. Thank you.
Thank you too. Thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye now.
Bye. Oh, it's like being invited into his living room, wasn't it? Having a cosy chat.
Del of a Life, the book.
Yeah,
Del of a Life.
That's the David's book. You're watching Breakfast. 8:59's the time.